Well, hello and welcome to another video. I'm really sorry it's been so long, guys. I think it was like the beginning of May or something when I did my last video where I was filming from home. Since then, the lockdown restrictions have been eased and we are allowed to go fishing again. And I did manage a day session a couple of weeks ago where I caught a nice 18-pound fully scaled mirror. Unfortunately, didn't manage a photo of that fish because it just went a bit mental on the bank. I think it was sort of gearing up for spawning and it didn't want to sort of calm down and let me take a photo. And as it was only 18-pound, I thought, why stress it out? I might as well get it back. So that's what I did. And also last week I did a 2-day filming session with Jag to film some of the new products that we've got coming out. And I didn't manage a fish on that session, unfortunately. Things were against us. Long story short, nothing happened in the end. But we are now heading out on a 24-hour session to my local club water. So I'm excited to be making another video for you guys. This video is all about rigs. I'm sure you had lots of time to tie up rigs during lockdown. I know I sure did. And this is my Sharp system. So that is my 5-point checklist for tying the perfect rig every time. So we're going to be driving to the lake now, so stay tuned and I'll keep you updated with any happenings during the session, and also we're going to be talking about my Sharp system. Well, how about this for a cracking start? I've only been fishing a couple of hours and I've managed this beautiful linear. There you go, 21.5 pounds. Bit lively, so I'll get it back and I'll tell you how I caught it. Well, here we are then. I finally got round to chatting to you guys. It's been really wet since I got here, so I've been here about 5 hours now, and you saw I've had that lovely mirror already. Well happy to get that one. Bit of a story behind it. I turned up and got my rods out the bag, you know, put them on the pod, started putting my bivvy up and everything, and then realised that I left my bait at home. But I did have a tin of sweet corn with me. Oh, once just shown then. I did have a tin of sweet corn with me, so what I did was I scattered a little bit of sweet corn on the couple of spots along the margins, and then I just fished Richworth Escort wafters over the top, and actually that's what I caught that fish on, a lovely 21-pound 8-ounce linear there. I believe it's one called the Peach Lin. It's one that I've been after for a while, so I was well happy to get that one. But yeah, that's kind of where we're up to now. So we got here and set up and everything, but it's just been raining, so I've not been able to chat to you guys, unfortunately. But the rain's kind of eased off a bit now and it's turned into a nice evening. So yeah, we're here, we're down at the club lake. It's a lovely sort of 3-acre sort of intimate little water with lilies and reeds and overhanging trees. You know, it's kind of really nice and carpy, and plenty of nice looking fish in here. And we're doing a 24 hours-ish session. Probably leaving sometime late morning tomorrow, and like I said in the intro, this video is all about rigs, and more specifically my Sharp system, which is a 5-point checklist for making the perfect rig, whatever rig you're tying. If you apply the Sharp system, it will make your rig work at its best efficiency. You know, it will make the rig sort of turbocharged, if you like. You know, you can tie up a rig and just cast it out, but if you check through these 5 points that I'm going to tell you, the rig will work as good as it can, you know, and then it's kind of up to the fish and the location of where you put it. So we're going to be talking about that in the morning, but for now it's kind of coming into the evening. I'm just going to put some dinner on in a bit, open a bottle of cider, which is always nice, and yeah, I'm hopefully going to have some more fish, so keep watching. I'm going to be updating you with anything that happens, any fish that come along obviously, and then tomorrow we're going to be talking through my sharp system. Quick update for you guys. We're coming into the evening now and it is starting to go dark, so after this I probably won't film much more, but I thought I'd just let you know that my mate has very kindly dropped off my bait for me. So where I said at the start I was just fishing a little S-core wafter and a handful of sweet corn, I've actually got some boilies now and some pellets, and I'm sorted for my session, so that's a relief. Oh, I think that's a bream, hang on. Right, so I was just saying that my bait has been brought down for me and I'm fishing sort of boilies and pellets now. The next thing I was going to tell you was that I caught a bream not long after redoing the rods. I was fishing a zig on one rod earlier because I didn't have any bait, you know. I thought, well, a zig, I can put it out there and hopefully pick up a fish cruising by in the sort of daytime. But yeah, I put a rod out for the night on a white S-core pop-up with a little bit of pellet, and very shortly after I caught a bream, and as you've just seen there, the same thing has happened again. I caught another bream within about 5 minutes of putting the rod back out, so I might have to have a rethink on that rod. I don't know, maybe I'll put like a snowman rig on so it's a bit bigger, hopefully the bream can't get it in the mouth. I was just fishing a little 15mm pop-up, but yeah, if I put a snowman rig, something like that, I might be able to avoid the bream. So I'll keep you updated on that one, or I'll talk to you about it tomorrow anyway. But stay tuned, because as I said, we're going to be talking through my sharp system, which is a really good way to perfect your rigs, so you're going to want to see that, and yeah, obviously if we catch any more carp I'll show you those as well. Well, morning has arrived and I'm a little surprised to say that we've had no more carp through the night. I thought after catching that one early on in the session that we could be on for a good few fish this session, but it seems that the carp has sort of switched off a little bit, and I've been plagued by bream in the night, as you saw when I was talking to you yesterday evening, and also I had a tench at about 3 o'clock this morning, so that could have put the carp off, you know, a bit of disturbance in the swim. Maybe it was enough to move the carp out, but you know, enough with the excuses. There's still a bit of time to go, about 5 hours left of the session, so it's early morning now. I'm going to leave just before lunchtime, and I'm sticking with the tactics. You know, I've got the wafters on, which I started with because I caught one on a wafter, so I thought I might as well stick with it. But I've put a bit of S-core boilie out there with a bit of S-core pellet as well, because I've always done well on that on this lake, and yeah, we're sort of sticking with it. But stay tuned, guys. I'm just going to drink my coffee now, and then we're going to be talking about my sharp system, which will help you perfect your rigs, make sure they're working to maximum efficiency. So you're going to want to see that. I'm going to get on with that, talking to you about that in a minute, and then we're going to be just keeping our fingers crossed for the rest of the session, and obviously I'll show you any fish that come along the way.
Lord only knows what it took to making you, like a blossom of a tree or the color of a jewel. So divine is the feeling that I find, like a sweet mountain breeze in a fragment of my mind. I said, darling, you are all I want for sure. Darling, give me everything.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about my Sharp system. It's not something you would have heard of before because I just thought it up during lockdown in one of those moments of inspiration. But basically, Sharp is an acronym for a 5-point checklist that you can apply to any rig, which will help make sure that that rig is working to its maximum efficiency. So the letters S, H, A, R, P all stand for one of the points that you need to apply to your rig to check before you cast out. So firstly, S conveniently stands for sharp hook. Now this is one of the most obvious things about rigs. You need to check your hooks are sharp, but not just when you take it out of the packet and tie up the rig, but every time you cast out you need to check your hook point, because if you cast out in the lake and sort of missed your mark, you know, and you need to wind in for a recast, that point could easily have hit something on the bottom or something on the way in and turned over or gone blunt. So what you need to do is run your thumb down towards the point of the hook, which helps you check if the point is turned over. Once you've done that, then you can run it down your nail, which is called the nail test, and if the point sticks in your nail then it's sharp enough, but if it skids along the top of your nail then it's not sharp enough. Now you can touch up your points with files and lots of special tools available to sharpen hooks. Sometimes if the hook's turned over you can't really bring it back to life and you might need to replace the rig, but you know, don't sort of just throw it away straight away. Try and touch it up with a file or something like that, and you may find you can get it back to sharp enough to catch another fish. So S is for sharp hook. Next, the letter H is for hook mechanics. Now there's so many different rigs out there and each has its own set of mechanical movements, if you like, to make it work efficiently. What you need to be doing before you cast out your newly tied rig is to check that the rig and the hook is working how it should be. So what I mean here is, if you've got, say, a coated braid with a bit of stripped back braid near the hook, don't just accept that that bit of braid is flexible, because a lot of braids on the market, it's very tightly woven inside, and the flexible braid isn't that flexible when you first strip it. What you need to do is rub it between your fingers, maybe even run your nails down it a bit, just to loosen the fibres, and it gives it that extra bit of flexibility, so that if a fish tries to pick it up from whatever angle, it can move and turn how it should do. But also, giving the rig that flexibility means that when the bait is picked up, the hook is able to drop down into the prone position, which is much more likely to catch the fish in the bottom lip. And this is what we want, isn't it? You know, with ledgering on the bottom with a weight, you want the hook to be going down into the bottom lip. Another part of hook mechanics is, if you're using a hair or a hook ring swivel on the shank of the hook, you need to make sure that that is in the correct position on the shank of the hook. If you're using a buoyant bait, I tend to like having it somewhere between opposite the barb and opposite the point, about halfway, so that when you pick up the rig, I'm talking about sort of wafters here, when you pick this up off the bottom, the hook point should drop down, because the buoyant bait doesn't help the hook turn in the fish's mouth, and you need to make sure that the hook's facing down to give it the best chance of catching in the fish's mouth. With a heavy bottom bait, such as, you know, a boilie straight out of the bag or a double boilie straight out of the bag, something that doesn't have any buoyancy, you want the hair or the shank bead for your hook ring swivel, you want that a bit nearer the curve of the hook so that the weight of the bait can help turn the hook in the carp's mouth. So if you've ever seen Terry Hearn's bottom bait rig, he tends to use heavy baits such as a boilie tipped with a bit of maize, and there's no buoyancy in that, so he'll have his hair coming off somewhere near the bend of the hook, so when you pull it over your hand it tends to turn because the weight pulls the point of the hook down. So you've really got to think about what your rig is designed to do and then make sure that it does do that, because you sometimes see rigs that are kind of tied up and it looks like what it's supposed to look like, but when you actually have a play around with it, it doesn't do what you want it to do. So H is for hook mechanics. The next letter in the word sharp is A, and that stands for anti-tangle. So this is fairly obvious again, guys, but it's worth remembering. You can't catch a carp with a tangled rig, can you? So there's plenty of things you can do to make sure your rigs don't tangle when you cast out. One of them is, if you're using a stiff material such as fluorocarbon or coated braid, you can steam the rig straight. This gives it extra stiffness and straightens it out so it flies nicely in the air and falls nicely through the water, and also lays nicely down on the bottom of the lake. So steaming the rig gives it that extra rigidity that just helps to prevent tangles. Also, what I like to do is tie a longer loop at the end of the rig where it attaches to your quick link. This extra loop acts as a boom section which further aids anti-tangle, particularly during the cast and when the rig's falling through the water. And I also add a silicone sleeve to this, which not only stops it coming off the quick link, but it also adds a little bit of extra anti-tangle. Another thing you can do is use PVA products or dissolving foam. Now, dissolving foam is a good one because you can put it on your hook, and then when you cast out it helps to separate the rig and the lead in flight, but also when it's falling through the water it sort of holds the rig up so that the lead and the bait fall separately, and then when it pops off the rig, you know, it comes to the top and gives you a visual sight marker to bait up to, so that's great, isn't it? Other types of PVA, you know, you've got like PVA mesh, you can do a stick, you can make stringers out of them, all sorts of different things, which all help prevent tangles, but also help you have a nice little parcel of bait around your hook and around your hook bait. So PVA is a great way of stopping tangles, but also it adds a bit of attraction around your rig. Another way to stop tangles is with your casting. Now I'm going to be doing a dedicated video all about stopping tangles sometime in the next few weeks, so you want to subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button below. It doesn't cost you anything, it just means that you'll get notified when I upload new videos, and I'm hoping to get a bit more regular content with my channel now that lockdown is over and we can get out fishing again. So A stands for anti-tangle. The next letter in the word sharp is R, and that stands for rig length. So to make your rigs as effective as they can be, the rig length needs to be tailored to the situation that you're fishing. So a few factors come into play here. One is the lake bed you're fishing over. If you're on a hard bottom, say gravel or hard clay or something like that, you can get away with a shorter rig because the lead won't sink into that lake bed, and so a shorter rig will still present the bait nicely, and generally the shorter the rig, the sort of better chance of hooking the carp. But that's not always the case, and the next point is that you have to cater the rig size to the size of fish you're fishing for as well. So generally the larger carp that are in your lake, the longer your rigs need to be. This is because of the sort of size and shape of the fish's body. If it's got a big belly, you know, deep-bodied fish, they've got a lot longer way to go to turn their body down to pick up your rig, and if your rig's short, they might not have enough movement in that rig to be able to get it in their mouths, and you might end up losing a lot of fish because they're only hooked, just in the lips, and you might end up only catching smaller fish in that lake. A good way to target larger carp is to use a longer rig. So think about the size of fish in your lake, think about the lake bed you're fishing on. If you're fishing over a soft bottom like silt, a longer rig is good because the lead can sink in and still leave the bait presented on top of the silt. And also in weed, if you want to use like a slow sinking bait to settle on top of weed, you might use a helicopter rig with a longer rig length, and the lead can go into the weed, but hopefully the rig will lay out and the bait sit on top of the weed. So it's all these different things you've got to think about when you're making a rig. Don't just tie up a rig and do the standard length of 8 inches that everyone seems to do. Think about your situation. Baiting the situation is another one. If you're fishing a spread of boilies, the fish are moving around more to pick up those baits, and quite often they'll be moving more quickly because they're kind of competing with each other to find each last boilie before they're all gone. So a longer rig just gives them that little bit of time to get the rig in their mouth while they're moving quick. It sort of gives it the flexibility to get up into their mouth if they're sort of rushing around your swim. Whereas if you're fishing a tighter baited situation, like in a solid bag or a spotted area, you want a shorter rig because those fish are moving a lot more slowly. They tend to hug the bottom and just stay in one spot and suck and blow it and sift out the particles of bait. So a short rig gives more chance of them to sort of feel the weight of the lead when they suck in your rig and hopefully hook themselves and give you a screaming take. So you've really got to think about your rig, in terms of baiting situation, the lake bottom, and also the size of fish that you're targeting. So R in the word sharp, it stands for rig length. The final letter in the word sharp and the final point in my sharp system, the final checklist point, is P. It stands for pinned down. So when you make up a rig, it's always important to make sure that you put putty on the rig so that it's pinned down to the bottom. Now, it's not just to keep the rig out of the way of the fish, it's also to help the rig to lay on any undulating bottom. You might have some, gravel, different sized stones. You want the rig to kind of blend in as much as possible, so putting a bit of putty on it will help that. But also, going back to rig mechanics, the bit of putty will help that hook point drop down in the fish's mouth, and it helps the rig to be pulled down as the fish picks it up. So you need the bit of putty somewhere in the middle of the rig so that there's enough flexibility near the hook for the fish to get it in its mouth, but then the putty will help pull the hook down as the fish tries to eject it or as the fish moves away. So a bit of putty is a great addition to any rig, and it's not just for bottom bait rigs, it can work with pop-up rigs as well. A little bit of putty in the middle can help the rig drop through the water nicely and lay out flat. So imagine if you've got a pop-up rig and your lead and nothing in between, then pop-up can fall straight on top of your lead, but a little bit of putty in the middle will help sort of push the rig away from the lead and help the rig lay out straight on the bottom, so that the fish comes in contact with the lead a lot quicker when it picks up your bait. So a little bit of putty on any rig is a great addition. So that's my sharp system. Hope it's useful to you. You just got to think about any rig that you tie and give it the best chance of working how it should do. You can't catch a carp with a rig that's tangled, with a blunt hook. A rig that's too short when you're fishing in deep silt or fishing for really big fish, you might struggle with a short rig. You just got to think about what that rig is designed to do and what situation you're choosing to fish that rig. Most of the time I use a blowback rig, but they're not always the same length, and if I go to France I might make it 13 inches or so because I might be fishing for 60 pounders, but if I'm fishing in the UK I vary it from between 6 and 9 inches depending on my baiting situation and what I'm fishing over. So that is my sharp system. It's not revolutionary, it's just a checklist to make sure your rigs are working properly, but I thought it was quite nice how the word sharp is an acronym for the checklist, and you know, a sharp point is probably the most important thing in carp rigs, so make sure you check your hook points, guys. And yeah, subscribe to the channel for future videos. We've got a few things coming up this year which I'm quite looking forward to, all being well. So yeah, stay tuned on my channel, guys. Check out some of the other videos. I'll post them on the screen now for you to have a look at, and we'll see you in the next video.